Hello, Sean. That's us live.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi there. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I think we're just waiting for Claudia. We're in different locations tonight, so I think
Yeah,
she's
I think she'll be back in a second. While Claudia's coming back on, just to let you know, so people will be joining from a couple of different groups that we're members of. So we've promoted what we're talking about, and we've been promoting the documentary. So people are joining now. We'll give them a couple of minutes to catch up. Is that you managed to get the dog away, Claudia?
Yeah, I took him upstairs with my daughter, so it's okay.
Yeah. And do you prefer Claudia or Claudia?
Claudia, please.
Claudia, no bother.
Thank
And you're
you.
just plain old Sean, nice and easy.
I know, Sean. Yeah.
I'm plain old Steve, so nice and easy. Okay, well listen, that's people joining now, so they can catch up later. So basically, we're beaming it out live. People can watch it live. They're going to hopefully they can ask some questions in the comments section as well. We can hopefully field some questions at the end. We'll aim for 45 minutes. If it rolls over to an hour, I think that'll probably be fine. Then we'll see how we go for time. But yeah, so thank you for catching up with me tonight. It's really, really good. What a great job you did on the documentary. Very, very impressive. So great work. Claudia, what was the driver then? What made you want to do this?
Mainly to watch my children's lives interrupted. My daughter's exams cancelled, her prom vanished, and she had been, so excited preparing for it. My son's university life interrupted, his job gone. So just watching them, my children like that, because it didn't affect me because my business went into Zoom seamlessly. But it frustrated me to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
And my son, after they renewed the second 3 weeks of lockdown, he was like a caged beast in the house.
Horrible.
And he was saying, "Mom, I have to go." And he just got on his bike and went riding his bike for miles on end to release his frustration for this impotence of nonsense.
Yeah. And whose idea was it then? Was it yourself or Sean, or did you just have a drink and a catch up and talk about it? Or how did you come to the conclusion that you were going to make a award-winning documentary about it all?
I'll let Sean answer that.
Yeah, I can't quite remember but we'd already planned.
You sound like Nicola Sturgeon. She can't remember a lot these days.
We'd already planned a trip to Sweden, or I had, to see a friend. I've got friends in Sweden. I go regularly, and we were so frustrated, as Claudia said, that we couldn't believe what was happening. We just couldn't believe it. And then when we read that Sweden, and through my friends, that they were doing it differently, we just thought, right, well, I was going anyway. Let's just go and make a film. Claudia was a BAFTA-nominated filmmaker in a previous life, and I was an out of work photojournalist at the time. Lockdown killed my business completely, more or less. So we just thought, right, let's stop hoarding toilet rolls and let's go make a film.
Yeah.
A big driver actually was my Guardian reading friends, with whom a lot of were contesting me when I was publishing on social media the good news that Sweden was getting away with no lockdowns, no masks, no school closures. And they kept telling me that I was using the wrong sources and that I was being right-wing and I was being some Trump supporter or something. And I said, no. And so we went to the source.
It's funny though, isn't it? You say that Sweden's doing well, which they were, and suddenly you're a right-wing Trump supporter.
Yeah.
It's quite a leap, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? When you see all this that is about the green reset that's coming out, you kind of begin to understand why they call you right-wing if you don't support it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was chatting to you before they started that you begin to think, well, on which side am I? I can anything that has a good outcome, like the Green Reset, anything that uses manipulation, coercion, control, and lying, can it really be good?
Yeah, 100%. That's this frustration that everybody's feeling, and what you've done is what a lot of people are doing, and a lot of people are going to do over the days and weeks and months ahead. Is you've taken the skills that you two guys have got, like you make documentaries. You're a counsellor. You happen to be a dancer at the same time as well, Claudia. So you've managed to mix all three of them together perfectly, and you've went and spoke out on quite a large scale about it by saying, well, I'm not just going to post about Sweden, I'm going to go and do a documentary about Sweden, and it's worked really well. How did you manage to get a hold of Tegnell then? And can you explain for the people who are listening a bit about Tegnell and what his position is, and compare it maybe to the UK equivalent?
Okay, well, Tegnell is the Chris Whitty of the UK, and we had these tickets to Sweden before the pandemic kicked, and we said, well, shall we try and get an interview with Tegnell?
Mm-hmm.
And so I, as I say, my background is in documentary, so I called some old contacts and asked, how do I get hold of Tegnell? And my friend said, oh, just write to him a letter in pen and paper in a nice envelope. He'll open it.
Right, okay.
So I sent him. Yeah,
I think most people would, though, wouldn't they? Most people would open a nicely written letter in a nice envelope. They would, yeah.
I used one of these shiny yellow envelopes from one of my daughter's, leftover cards, and I wrote, in handwriting, very earnestly, saying, we're desperate. We're here in the UK. We want to know what you're doing. Please, can we meet you? And he got back.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And was it because he got back at that point? You had an idea for a documentary, but did you need him to be in it, or were you going to do it anyway?
No, we didn't know whether we would do a documentary, did we, Sean? You tell.
It was very, very last minute. We decided literally. Just as we were leaving, Tegnell got back, and we threw. Claudia dug her old camera out. I just grabbed a couple of iPhones, and that was it. That's all we had. And even when we went, we didn't know whether we were going to. We knew we were going to do some filming, and we knew we had Tegnell in an interview lined up. So we went to the press conference. I've been to thousands of press conferences. I know how they work, and it was great because Claudia asked some questions live on Swedish TV. Mm-hmm. And then we interviewed him afterwards, and we were the last to interview him, which it was a long wait, but we knew that we'd get the most time, and I think he did it on purpose. And we had 20-minute exclusive interview with him. Yeah. And I think when we left that day, we knew we had enough because we had spent days and days working out what questions we were going to ask him. So we knew we had a documentary. And then we just had to combine it was a bit of a holiday with filming and interviews, and that's what we combined the next 8 or 9 days, doing both, really, being tourists and making a film.
And on the tourism side, obviously you're touring as ex lockdown Britain escapees. You've managed to flee from lockdown Britain. What was your sort of overall favourite thing about Sweden and the life there that you experienced while you were there?
Going to Sweden for me was like stepping into the future. Mm-hmm. And then coming back to Britain, it really felt like traveling in time.
Back
in time, yeah. It seems like they have got it sussed. Mm-hmm. They have, and as the teacher says, they are a high tax paying economy, and it's socialist and democratic, but you don't see poverty, you don't see extreme poverty, and people make a lot of sense, as you see in the questions. They just speak from common sense, a lot of earnestness. I loved it.
Is that your first time there?
Yes, my first time there. My grandmother was Swedish.
Yeah, but I've never been to Sweden, but your documentary certainly made me want to go. It looked really good. They're a good-looking race. They look very good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what makes me want to go. But yeah, no, it was just great to see them all in the street and talking. They talk very well, don't they? They seem to be quite intelligent.
They talk sense.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the Vox Pop we did, what you get in the documentary is what we interviewed, because we were on holiday, so we didn't want to spend the whole holiday working. So we devoted 2 or 3 days to interviewing people, and who we interviewed, everybody agreed with tech. We did not find anybody who didn't agree.
Yeah.
And we didn't see the point of going to dig out dissent, because already the mainstream media is doing that. So we just interviewed who we saw, and everybody saw sense in what they were doing, and no sense in what we are doing.
And why do you think people have got it in for Sweden? Because every time you talk about Sweden or you raise Sweden, it's like, no, Sweden never worked, and Sweden are struggling now, and Sweden made a mistake. Why do you think that is?
Well, I personally think that Sweden went through they escaped through the cracks, and they prove that lockdown was pointless.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they escaped through the cracks is that their government could not interfere with what the public health agency was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why what they've done is what the science said, and not what the politicians said. And I think people are terrified that Sweden will be proven right, because then they have a lot to question themselves.
Well, absolutely, that's the thing. And what is the difference? Is there a slight difference? Is Tegnell working directly for the government or not? How does that work? It's slightly different from Whitty, isn't it? They've got their own agency. They're not actually part of the government or something. Is that what gave him a kind of loophole to operate freely or more freely?
Sweden, I don't think they've been in a war for 350 years, so they never had any emergency measures. So every other European country's got emergency measures. So if there's a war, the government can take control of health. But Sweden, never having had a war for 350 years, never had that in place. So the public health body were in control, and they've done that for a reason, because they don't want politicians to get involved who can be making decisions based on popularity, getting re-elected. Unfortunately, as we, in the new year, they actually voted in Parliament to introduce measures, and that's what's happened since January. But that was the reason why Tegnell and his team, he's got a huge team behind him, had so much control, really. They set the agenda, and politicians were just, frustrated, and eventually they squeezed their way in.
And has he had his wings clipped then, so he's not got the same controls anymore? He's still the main guy. He's the chief epidemiologist. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's still the chief epidemiologist, and he's still in control. However, speaking to friends in Sweden, and his popularity, when we were there, his popularity, I think he had 80% backing of people in Sweden, and I think that's dropped right down to 55%. And there's no doubt about it that he is under much more pressure since Christmas from politicians, and he's I think he's putting on a brave face, but he's under intense pressure to get through this.
Yeah. And you were there for how long in total then? Was it 10 days, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the overall, what would you say was the highlight of the 10 days, or what kind of shocked you, or was there anything that surprised you more than anything else during that trip?
Well, the highlight was meeting Tegnell. I mean, what a honor to have met this man.
Yeah, he seemed to speak very well with you. Like it was a very good interview, question and answer set, and that was just one little 20-minute set with him at the end of the day.
Yeah,
And he gave you more time than most of the others, because he knew that you guys were making this documentary.
But he was earnest. There was no, here with the press conferences, there's so much filtering, and the journalists are chosen. He was open, or anybody was asking him questions there. They let me, nobody read the questions we were going to ask.
Yeah.
And he's just answering from his common sense, and his knowledge. And that was the highlight, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. He came across as a very honest man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find that, Sean? Were you the cameraman and
yeah,
Claudia, was that?
Yeah, he was honest, and he was very upfront, and but I think as well he's a really cool guy. I mean, you can't help but listen to him, and I mean he's a
bit cooler than Chris Whitty, isn't he? He's just a little bit cooler.
We made the point in the film that Chris Whitty was saying exactly the same as Tegnell, but nobody was listening to Chris Whitty as his like strange body language and his mumbling and his head down. Basically no one listens to him. And Tegnell, you can't take your, you listen to everything he says,
He sort of commands the room.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes in leaders you need that,
That's kind of a big part of the challenge that we've got, is you don't have that credibility factor in the people we're listening to on TV.
I think gut feeling, when you meet someone or see someone for the first time, that's why you just have a gut feeling about people. And when I see Boris Johnson, Chris Whitty, etc., the gut feeling is there's just a gut feeling that you can't trust these people.
100%, and I think deep down we're kind of human lie detectors, aren't we? We know instinctively whether we've been told the truth or not. And I think we're now into 12 months of not been told the truth at all here, and it's wearing on us. And it's kind of back to, I suppose, Claudia, what you've done there. You've taken the skills that you've got and you've spoken out about it. You've done something about it. But everybody's trying to do something. I'm trying to do something with these interviews and groups and that type of thing. And other people, there's people forming other groups, or they're writing to their MPs. You've got marketing guys who are using their skills on the internet, social media people. Everybody's trying to research what's going on and try and take their own skills and do something with it. And that's kind of what you guys, yours is a very good example of that. You've had to do something that was boiling over. Do you feel rewarded after doing it? Like, now that you've done it, do you feel rewarded? Because we're not any better off. I mean, nothing. I think you've done quite a big thing, but it's not going to. Did you think at some point it was going to change the world or change views? Did you think that, or did you hope that?
To be honest, the only one we can change is ourselves.
Yep.
And I think that the change will happen when each of ourselves stop obeying this silly order, and that has to come from each of us. Of course, everything everybody's doing is helping, but unfortunately, probably most people who are coming to this interview are the converted. They already have decided.
Yeah.
And the people who have decided to follow and believe this scaremongering narrative won't go anywhere near our documentary or this interview. They just, it's like untouchable material.
Yeah.
I have friends from years, they will not watch it. They will not talk about it.
They won't watch even your documentary?
No.
That's funny. I think it is quite shareable, though.
In the room, they will not talk about it with me.
Well, Steve, we made it on purpose to kind of. I know at the end, Claudia pins I'm an anti-lockdown. I don't believe lockdowns work, but we tried to do it that it would appeal to a wide-ranging audience. And
that makes total sense. I mean, that came across. I think your strategy there definitely came across.
And we have had lots of people who wouldn't normally, who've come back and said it's made them think. So people who are very much going with the narrative have come back and said, yeah, it's us. You're really obvious questions to us, but questions that they've never even thought of asking. You know, so it kind of has worked, but on quite a small scale. I think with the trailers, we've had about 100,000 views in total. So it's a really small kind of, everything helps. But yeah, I mean, we didn't really go to change the world, but we just thought we'd do our bit.
Yeah. But it's still getting views out there, and it's back to this marketing strategy. How do you get it out there that people can use? I mean, I've used it. I've posted it to. We go into different newspaper groups and argue with people. Sometimes it's not arguing; it's kind of it is arguing. We're going to argue with them because they don't believe what we believe, and we butt heads and things like that. And I've used it. But I was talking to a guy who was semi-sensible, I would say. It's probably the best compliment I could give the guy, and he was semi-sensible. And of all the things I've researched, that I chose to send him your documentary because I just had a feeling that it might have been right for this particular guy, and it was a way to open his mind. And it's not that long. I think is it 45 minutes in total? Yeah. Did you do that on purpose because to keep it to a sort of bite-sized chunk of time?
It kind of came naturally to that length, and then there was the limit of length for the festival that we submitted it to, and so for a short documentary, 45 minutes was the top. So we just stuck it to that length. Yeah.
There's a big question from the group there. It's kind of a question and a statement at the same time. But imagine your own friends not wanting to watch it, not even curious. Did you expect them to want to watch it? Because obviously you're proud of it. You've created this and it was actually, as I said to you at the start, very, very well done. I mean, the music, I found the music was very gripping. It was like a wee Netflix documentary. I watched it with my wife. I watched it twice, actually. I've watched it twice now. I found it really, really good. But I think it just worked really well. It doesn't look in any way low budget. I know it probably was low budget, but
it was zero budget.
Well, do another one because that's good. For zero budget, it is excellent.
I mean, zero budget if we don't pay ourselves for all the painful hours editing.
Editing with the tape. And did you edit it together yourself? You pulled it together yourself?
I edited it. Yeah, Sean was giving me, guidance in a way. Sean encouraged me to use all my skills because I was more of the idea that I don't want to mix the identity as a filmmaker and as a counselor because I thought that would be a bit dangerous. And Sean insisted, but why? You're a counselor, use it. And then he was saying, but you're a dancer, use the dancing. And I was embarrassed to use the dancing.
Yeah, that would have been good as well because that was you. So you were dancing right at the very start before you went. That was kind of like the opening scene. And then you go there and you had a couple of wee tango dances while you were there as well. I mean, I'd imagine as a dancer that would.
My son said, Mom, if you want to be taken seriously, change that shot at the beginning.
No, I liked that. I liked that little scene at the beginning. I thought it was quite good. Well, the thing is, you were dancing alone with your radiator, and then you went and you danced on a rooftop with other people. It's quite a contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but how did that feel then? From dancing alone to standing up there and.
That was amazing. That melodica on the roof, you just could not have planned it.
Yeah.
We
would have the riot police here if we tried to do that.
Yeah.
Helicopters, water cannons.
Yes.
So Claudia, back to that thing, because this is happening a lot with people, this sort of friendship disruption and problems, you said at the start you got a couple of friends who were, calling you a right winger and saying you like Trump and, your tinfoil hat. I'm sure you've been called all of those kind of things. How did it make you feel when they didn't want to watch it? Like, did you think some of them would actually proud, you're proud of your product, if you like? Did you think they would sit down with you and watch it or give you feedback?
I was expecting feedback, and also, even if they don't agree, it's good to debate ideas and to discuss, but nothing.
Nothing at all.
I'm not saying some friends did, but the ones that I was arguing with on social media about the sources that I was using being right-wing, because at the time, seemingly only the right-wing media was publishing that Sweden was doing well. So I thought, well, I'll go to the source because they know I'm not right-wing, and I'll speak to the chief epidemiologist, and then they'll see that it's not right-wing, it's true.
Yeah.
It's what's happening.
Yeah.
And we won't talk about it. It's become like we do not talk about it. And for example, this friend who goes back many years, it was my birthday, and she says, Claudia, I'll ring you if we can have a COVID-free talk.
Yeah, I think we're all getting that. We become COVID wars.
I just said, don't ring me, because if you can't talk about what's happened, this enormous thing that's happening in our lives, then what are we going to talk about? Brownies, creme brulee, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You can't. It's very tough to sit and not talk. I mean, it should be an adult conversation. It's the most important matter of the day, and it's a big part of the problem is we're not talking about it. Do you find that, Sean? I mean, what was your friends' reactions to it? Did you manage to get somebody to watch it with you or give you feedback on it?
I've just had my 17-year-old daughter come in about an hour ago and said, Dad, why are you arguing with people on Facebook about the virus? You know, embarrassing. And I'm saying, well, this is if you want to join the adult world, this is what we do. We discuss things. They're not arguments, but that's how she sees it. She's embarrassed.
It's funny though, isn't it, that she's trying to suppress you? You know.
Yeah, my own daughter. Trying to suppress me. Yeah. And you know, family. Lots of family and friends. I mean, my family and friends have watched it, and most have come back and said, yeah, it's kind of posed some good questions and they enjoyed it. You know, but it's interesting about this right wing, left wing thing. Claudia asked the question live on Swedish television about that.
Yeah, that was a good question to ask him, actually.
Yeah,
I think he handled it quite well.
Well, Tegnell said, yeah, he did. He handled it really well, like he handles all questions. And he said, well, it shouldn't be right and left wing. And when we set off, we didn't really think this is right wing or left wing, but that's what it's become like Brexit. It's almost like you're in one camp or you're in another. And if you're anti-lockdown, you must be right wing. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. David Mitchell in The Guardian, the comedian, has written a really good piece this week about politics, left wing, right wing, and coronavirus. It's worth reading.
Yeah, I think I've seen that, actually. Yeah, it's a challenge that we're.
I can just interject here. Is that when Tegnell says this has nothing to do with right wing or left wing? That's because at the time the Swedish Public Health Agency was operating independent of government policy. So he was really following the science. But now, as of January the 8th, the government has overruled that statutory proceedings. So now they are beginning to get involved, and that's why we're hearing there's more lockdown. So now it's becoming political.
Yeah. Do you think they're trying to make what was a good news story of Sweden? Do you think they're trying to turn it into don't talk about Sweden, that's not an argument anymore because they're now in lockdown and they're back to the same as everybody else? You know, they were being used as a reason to prove that our country was making mistakes, but now they've actually been they've had their wings clipped, and it's no longer as a real good news story anymore. Do you feel that's why they did that?
We don't really know what's behind all this, but if it is really the G20 virus, as it's one of the big reset, then Sweden is part of the G20, and it is through the cracks precisely because it didn't have that possibility for the government to interfere with public health agencies. So it's almost as if they escaped through the cracks, and now they've got the government to interfere. So this documentary is the only slice of proof there is that what they were doing worked.
Yeah, that's it. It's actually because nobody else is reporting on it in that way. Nobody else was telling the the Sweden good news story. And have you had any problems with censorship with it, because it has got a positive slant? Has it been taken down from YouTube, or has it remained up?
Interesting thing is that Sean put it on a Tegnell fan club, which has 90,000 Swedish people. And they were all fascinated with the film. And we had thousands of them with one of the first installments we had. And then by the time the law changed, they did not publish the full documentary, and they banned us from the page.
Yeah.
From the Tegnell fan club.
And he's not connected with it. He's not personally connected with it. Have you been back in contact with him since the?
We tried, but we've got no response.
And whereas he was quite responsive to you straight away.
Yeah. So things have changed.
Do you think his government would have been happy with him conducting an interview as openly and honestly as that?
We don't know. I don't know, Sean. You answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely not. They would definitely not have liked this man giving interviews left, right, and centre. I mean, when we were there, there was a press team, and even in the film, you can see when Claudia's interviewing him at the end, you can see him looking over once or twice, and there's somebody stood to his right saying, "Right, time up, got to go, got to go." So he doesn't. They do have a press team there, but we were given lots of freedom to wander around, film what we wanted, ask him what we wanted. There was no prepping us. There was no, you can't ask that, you can't ask that, which you often get with politicians. And so yeah, the Swedish government would not have liked it, and politically, it's exactly the same in Sweden. The parties are all trying to score, just like here with Labour and Conservative, and here it's drive. Labour here is very much, let's have a bigger lockdown because they think that's what will get them more votes. And it's exactly the same in Sweden. It's exactly the same in Sweden.
Imagine after a year of lockdown, more lockdown gets you more votes. I mean, that's the world we live in.
And
for me, the biggest downfall is the people. Because how can people be such mindlessly obeying this nonsense?
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense.
I mean,
that's a word I've been using a lot lately. This is absolute nonsense.
Right from the very start, when the lockdown was announced, and we were, we just thought, well, hang on, you've got this virus, and you've got it, as Chris Whitty and Tegnell both said at the time, it affects mainly the elderly and the vulnerable. So when Sweden decided to voluntarily ask the vulnerable and the elderly that it would be best if they were careful and self-isolate, but it was totally voluntary, it was up to them, and yet we locked down everyone. We just thought, why lock down the fit and healthy, particularly the young, who it's absolutely proven not to affect. So that was the main drive for us going to Sweden, that they seemed to think, right, if this was a virus that just affected children under 5, you wouldn't lock down everybody.
Yeah.
You'd just say to the under 5s, right, stay in and let's see what happens. So it for us, it just was insane.
And what was it like to be sort of floating around Sweden? And you can drink in the pubs. There's no alcohol limits. You can drink inside, outside. Yeah.
Complete freedom.
Yeah. No restrictions at all, really.
No.
Yeah. What percentage of people were wearing masks?
None.
I think that there's a shot in the subway that one woman is wearing a mask, and that's it.
Yeah, and some people in the subway in London used to wear masks anyway because it's quite smoggy down there and things like that. So, yeah, it's quite frustrating when you see it though, because people would love. I mean, a meal with your family, a glass, a bottle of wine, sitting outside, a nice spring day. We're months away from that. One of the things that came across, what do you think the Swedes think of what's happening in Britain? And I've got something to come back to on this, but what do you think the Swedes think of what's happening in Britain?
Sean, do you want to answer that?
Well, when we were there, everyone we spoke to, and it's a couple of the interviews. And I mean, Eva, the elderly woman, who incidentally was the only elderly person we could find
out and about.
Yeah, out and about. She said it was torture. What they were doing in the UK was torture, and that's pretty much what everybody thought. Because remembering when we went to Sweden, they didn't see all the negative headlines that we were getting about Sweden. So they'd not seen them. So we went, seen all these. So every time there was a story about Sweden, like the care homes that they admitted they got wrong, like the rest of the world, it was Sweden's and the UK newspapers. You know, the day Tegnell admitted he made a mistake. Now, you'd never get a politician admitting they'd made a mistake, but Tegnell admitted they made a mistake with care homes, and that accounted for something like 80% of their deaths at the time.
Yeah.
So if you take away those deaths, they barely had any deaths with no lockdown. So when Tegnell admitted that, the headlines in the UK was just Sweden fails. And that is the perception that people in the UK, that Sweden had failed. But he just admitted what every country pretty much in Europe had done. They'd failed care homes. And he admitted it because he wasn't a politician. The same day, a Scandinavian prime minister admitted that they panicked and locked down too much. And that was that story was nowhere to be seen. You had to scroll down to get that. So when we went to Sweden, they'd not seen any of the UK headlines slating Sweden and saying it was carnage, and that there they were going around life as normal.
Yeah.
But then you have also Joel, the Swedish dumpling man, who actually believes that the whole of Europe is acting like a Soviet Union. I don't know if you recall that part.
I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that part.
And then the barman who says he feels sorry for English shop owners because they're all going to go bust. So there you have the opinion of people in Sweden about what they think is happening in the UK.
Yeah.
Are we becoming, I don't know, are we going to become a communist? Are we going into communism? I don't know what's happening. What's this about Europe?
And again, when you start talking like that, which is the communism is a model that these guys seem to like the idea of. It's not as if it's not in use in other countries. It's in use with China and other places. It's a very economic model as far as they're concerned. The standard of living can be kept quite low. The people can be kept at a certain level. With the Green New Deal, communism would be quite a good way to run a very green society, probably in these hardened business people's minds, and that's very much what we could be facing.
Like we could not compete with China if we carried on the way we were.
In terms of the hourly rates and...
Like I even saw on Newsnight, the writer of this book is Surveillance Capitalism, and she was actually saying that, as China has emerged as the top in the fourth industrial revolution, that they have managed the social media in a way that we haven't yet. And that's allowed them to come tops. And that we are, the democratic process is one step forward, two steps back. And I love it, because it takes longer, but we get there more solidly. But China is just rocketing away with totalitarianism.
Yeah.
So we compete. So this is the way maybe they're bringing us up to scratch with China.
Yeah.
Using the Chinese virus.
Yeah. No, that would make sense. And just back to the mistake that Tegnell made. So what was his mistake with care homes then? Same as us. He put the
same as us.
Same mistake.
Yeah. And on top of it all, care homes in Sweden are private, so it was not even his responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many deaths had they had at the time when you guys were there? You would know that, I'm sure.
I think that we went and had about 6,500 deaths. And remember that Ferguson had predicted 500,000 deaths in the UK without a lockdown, and he predicted, was it 80,000 in Sweden without a lockdown?
By June.
Yeah, and they'd had 6,500, of which the vast majority were care homes over the age of 85. So and since then, even at the moment, even now that states have now got more, if they want to lock down, they can do. No state in Sweden has done, no area has done a lockdown, but they are all bringing in their. It's a bit like Scotland and Wales and England all doing their own thing. So and none of them have done a full lockdown, but some of them are bringing in more restrictions about groups. From 50 down to 8 in restaurants and dining alone, things like that. So they are introducing it. But I noticed that even without a lockdown, at the weekend there were several thousand turned up for a protest in the old town in Stockholm, Gamla stan. So even that they're protesting more than we're protesting, and they're not even in a lockdown.
Yeah. Well, this is the next thing. That's the big topic of conversation just now. This sort of tier 4 thing, breaking it up, and the police coming in and breaking up protests. Peaceful protests being broken up in that way. It's happening up and down the UK. I was watching some videos on it over the weekend as well. So it's certainly not good. With regards to the older people, so voluntary for the older ones, what age? What was their cut-off then? 65 or 70? What was the age for the older people to voluntary shield?
I don't think they actually came up with an age. I think they may have recommended it to the over 70s, but there was nothing. There's no rules or anything. They just said if you're vulnerable, or that was it really. The elderly and the vulnerable. I don't think they even set an age, but they may have recommended to over 70s. I can't remember. It was all just do whatever you think is sensible.
Yeah, and that example, Claudia, that you gave, the relationships, like the parent, adult, and child, that was really good. And you think you just drew that out and mapped it out, and we are definitely being treated in not in a level playing field by our government, and that's one of the things that has to really change very fast.
And in counseling, the work that we do is to try and turn that dysfunctional. I'm trying to find where the camera is. That diagonal relationship of parent-child, we try to turn it into a parallel one of adult to adult, and that's the work of counseling, with relationship counseling, and usually the power is in oneself, and this is where there's no point in blaming Boris and Witty. We are buying into it by obeying. So we have to find where we are letting this happen and make the change there, because while we blame, change will not happen.
Yeah.
Blame and denial are the two places of stagnation. The only one we can change is ourselves. So while we blame Boris or the world or this, there will be this will carry on. We'll be feeding it.
Yeah.
Fuel.
And if we do nothing and we say nothing, I mean that is the problem. Like an angry parent not wanting to listen to a child. Doesn't matter what the child says. The parent saying, "No, you don't have a say in this." It's almost like it's beneath you. We are technically been told we don't have a say in this. We don't have a voice. We don't have an opinion that's worth hearing. They don't want to enter into a debate. You can't speak out. You've been censored online. You can't go and protest. They don't want to talk to us on it. They don't want to have an adult conversation about it. And that's going to create some challenges in the weeks and months ahead. For sure, as you get into spring. I mentioned that question earlier about what did the Swedes think of the UK. I spoke to my son today, who's in Australia. He's 21, and he was in a pub gambling, as he does, and he'd won. Actually, he'd betted on a dog, and the trainer of the dog was called Steve Pollard. So, and it won. So that's what he was phoning me for. And you know what was really funny? Actually, when he phoned me, I'd just been thinking about him that second. And this has got nothing to do with anything. But see, lately, it's almost like, I don't know what it is. Every time I think about somebody, they phone me. for some reason. It's like there seems to be some kind of big connection thing happening. I don't know what it is, but he's saying you guys are in lockdown till June. Is that right? That's what they're getting over there. Now, if you think about it, if Australia thinks Britain is in lockdown till June, then they think we've been in lockdown pretty much for a year and a half, or a full year of lockdown is what they're thinking, with a couple of breaks in between. Now, I remember when we were looking at Melbourne, and we were saying about the Melbourne, the Victorians. We were saying, why are they not coming out? I mean, they were on a very, very strict lockdown. But the way the world's looking at the UK just now, they'll be saying, why is the UK not doing anything about this? Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah, like you've got a reputation in the world, and we're not stopping this, which means it just keeps going. And that's the biggest problem just now. It's not going to get any better.
I think the majority of people in this country have been paid off. Work from. It's for me. It's no surprise that the pro-lockdowners tend to be on full pay working from home.
Yep.
And the majority of people have been bought off and they're doing okay. And it's the minority who have struggled, who are saying, hang on, why can't we work? I'm being, sort of, and for me, I think that's the reason. And when furlough ends, maybe that's when people will kick off. And the government know this. They know that if they keep buying people off and paying them,
furlough now until September. For me, that's really worrying.
Yeah, because we're moving back into sort of autumn, winter again. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And what about with regards to then? You've obviously got this documentary done. It's been brilliant. You must be thinking of doing something next then, because I don't imagine you guys are the type of people who are going to stop here. Has it given you any new ideas, or are you just going to take it easy for a while and see what comes along, or have you anything else in the pipeline?
Over to you, Claudia. Claudia is the filmmaker. I'm a photojournalist. So, I helped with the filming and I helped kind of with ideas, but Claudia spent 4 months editing that film, and that's a big chunk of time to edit a 45-minute film. So,
yeah.
For me, it's easy for me to come up with ideas, but it's down to Claudia, who will be doing the majority of the work.
Yeah, I think that anger fueled this film, anger and sheer frustration. And maybe when the next batch of anger or frustration comes along, at the moment that we are focusing on getting this film seen, to see if it ignites debate, if it even brings the woke to even begin to question themselves a little bit, then the film will have done its job. It is tempting, we've already been invited to Sweden to Sean's friend's house, who is the one who came up with the idea of the Lagom, because we were asking them what's the secret? What's the secret? And so Pete, Sean's friend, said it's the Lagom way. It's the Swedish Lagom way. And
just explain what that Sweden, the Lagom way is again, just because I should have covered that at the start, but just explain that again, because there's an interesting part of the title. Just explain the
Lagom way is the happy medium, is not no extreme, not left wing, not right wing, center, not lockdown, not virus denying, just approach it like another virus, no extremes, the happy medium, not bad, good, just good enough. And so we're invited to their house again in summer, and I was kind of thinking, well, maybe it might be interesting to see what happened in Sweden the second half of this nightmare. But I don't know. We'll see. So they approached us from World Freedom Alliance to do a series, but at the moment, I personally feel a bit burnt out.
Well, listen, take a good rest. But I think, is there anything else that you want to say to wrap up? Because I don't want to keep you guys too long tonight. But is there anything else that you wanted to particularly get out? I mean, we will try and share the video out more again now that people have seen it. I'm going to re-encourage everybody to watch it. I could see a few comments there. Some people who are watching this interview haven't actually had the chance yet to watch the documentary, so they'll watch that and they've had the chance to meet you guys now, so that's good. So hopefully more, and then as I said, it's very, very shareable, so I've used it and I'll definitely be using it again. So
yes, as you say, what each to do what they can do to help. And I think that it would be a big help to spread the film and to like dandelion seeds to spread the news this spring, so that to spread common sense, so that's what each person can do, is share it with their own networks, and each ripple will create a bigger critical mass, because it's amazing how many people have not questioned at all. And there are people who still haven't left their homes because they're scared of the virus.
No, it's a real problem. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you both. If you guys can hang back, as I said, I'll send out the link to the video again to a few of the groups, make sure, and the guys will, the members of the groups are very good, so they will get out there and spread it, and they'll write their little posts about it, and they'll send it in private messages and things like that, and that's quite good. A more private way to do it sometimes than a post. And it's like recommending a Netflix series or something like that, or recommending something that's on Netflix or Prime. You're recommending something to somebody, and I think that's what gets them to watch it. But I don't think anybody who watched it would be disappointed at all. It's very watchable, and congratulations again. You've done a brilliant job. So well done, and thank you for tonight. And if you guys hang back, we'll have a quick chat. But thanks to everybody who watched, and thank you to you two for taking part, and well done on creating your brilliant documentary.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers, guys.
Bye.
Cheers.